Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our March 2022 presentation, Solving the Mystery of WIOA Eligibility. I'm Patrick Brown, Director of MACAE, and welcome. We're so glad to have you here today. As you're coming in, if you want to just say hello in the chat, we appreciate seeing everybody and seeing where everyone's from. And I know in this virtual environment, we've got some familiar faces and some new faces. And it's just nice to be reminded of the colleagues that we have with us. So if you want to say hello in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. We are recording today's session, so you'll be able to go back and watch the recording, as well as any colleagues that signed up and registered that weren't able to make it today. You can go back and do that. But we're very excited to be talking about this today. You know, one of the most important things I think for the work that we all do is really consider and think about ways that the adult education and workforce development systems intersect with one another. Oftentimes it can seem very confusing. At other times, maybe it seems like it's really going very well. And so today we thought was a good juncture to really talk about what does it look like ultimately when those intersect holistically for the participant. And we have to really think about that today. We're going to talk a lot about processes. We're going to talk about some different policies, but really at the heart of what we're doing with programming is really doing the benefit of the participant. So if we can keep that frame of mind today, I think that will really lead us and guide us, not only in today's discussion, but in future discussions. Another little just kind of food for thought for you today is that certainly this whole enterprise of talking about WIOA and integrated education and training is something that we're not going to be able to solve all of the world's problems in just this little hour or 2-hour session that we have this morning, but this is really part of a bigger conversation. And so we're so excited to just kind of be having these conversations, thinking about them. If you find today's conversation extremely valuable, we certainly can pull together resources and do a follow-up and continue to have these conversations. And so please consider that and think about that throughout today's session. The other thing I would share with you is that certainly we have a wonderful presenter, Belinda Sykes, that we'll be introducing here in just a moment from a representative at Detroit at Work. But certainly every Michigan Works agency operates in its own capacity. And so there are a lot of shared trends, there's a lot of shared similarities in programming, but the staffing positions may be slightly different and the capacity may be slightly different. But the essence of programming is the same, much like the adult education landscape and the adult education system. So recognizing those nuances and recognizing and being aware of that and sensitive to that within your own local community is going to be really important today for you to think about how you can take some of these ideas and utilize them and implement them and be engaged with them in your own programming. So I will stop talking about that and we'll dive right into just a few housekeeping things before I turn it over to our wonderful presenter. Again, if you just want to say hello in the chat, we always appreciate that. This is an interactive session. So if you've got questions, we invite you to put them into the chat. Belinda is happy to take questions and we'll be kind of gathering and grouping those towards the end of the presentation. But certainly we want to address as many as we can. We'd ask that you try to stay muted. You know, sometimes I know a stray cat can step on the unmute button, or sometimes we hit it if we're transitioning from a meeting to a next, but we'd ask that you do that out of respect for everyone so that we can hear clearly and we can see the screen and know what's going on. If you are looking for sketches for today's program, I'll put the link into the chat here in just a moment and you'll have access to that. We are recording today's session. All the materials will be made available to you. And anyone who is watching after today's live session, but watching the recording, will have through May 15th to submit those sketches. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. I am going to go in and put the link to the Google form, which is our sketch form. I put that into the chat. You'll find that the sketch form requires your email, your name, your PIC, which is your personal identification code. And then it will ask you which professional development you are attending. You'll click the drop-down box and you'll select the Solving the Mystery of WIOA Eligibility and then click Submit. A reminder that this is the first step in the process. Once we upload that you have attended the session and participated, you'll still get an email from the MOACE system confirming where you'll have to go in and confirm 2 things that you learned and then submit. So remember, that's the second part of the process in order to receive sketches. So we've tried to streamline our process as easy as possible for you to be able to do that. Basically, this is like a sign-in. So I will drop the sketch form link again into the chat. So make sure that you do that if you need sketches. If sketches sound unfamiliar to you, or you don't have a administrator or teacher certificate that you're continuing, don't worry about it. That's the easiest thing I can say. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful, and I'd like to introduce our wonderful presenter, Belinda Sykes. She is a career coach at Detroit at Work and the leader and a problem solver who is always ready to jump in and help the team. And that's certainly true when we asked and extended the invitation to her to come to today's session. As a career coach, she works directly with clients who are interested in various training and educational pathways. And she really does have a passion for that. And it very much shows in the development of her relationship with her colleagues and particularly with clients. She's a native of New York, which I know she's very proud of, as she was talking with me and as she was coordinating with our workforce development chair, Karen Govan. And she spent a lot of her time in career and education. So she understands the nuances, the dynamics that we all may be working with. She was the co-founding member of a charter school in the Bronx, where she provided resources for low-income families. And throughout her career has really worked to hold clients and stakeholders at the heart of all programming and what she does. And so I think that's so critical and important in today's conversation, and will be very important in setting the tone and the landscape for, as we talk about adult participants and opportunities that they may have within the workforce system. She's earned her bachelor's in communications at Aspen University, and she's currently working towards her master's in higher education at Walden University. So thank you so much to Belinda Sykes, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Could everyone see it?
We can. Thanks, Belinda.
You're welcome. So thank you again for that introduction. I know that we're going to be holding off questions until the end of the presentation, and Patrick will be filling them out in the chat. And either Karen or myself will be able to answer any questions that you may have after the presentation. I'd just like to add that this is my very first presentation, so please bear with me. And if I do a wonderful job, just give me a round of applause right after. Thank you. Let's get started. So, imagine that you lost your job. Imagine that you did not have a high school diploma. Imagine you wanted a career as a skilled trade specialist. If you can imagine these scenarios, then you are looking at the faces of a WIOA client. So what is WIOA? WIOA is a workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It presents opportunities to improve job and career options for workers and job seekers through an integrated, job-driven public service system that links diverse talents to businesses. The workforce system supports a strong regional economic and plays an active role in community and economic and in the workforce development. It is like a marriage of how we register our clients and funding. So how are the funds allocated? It's a 5-step process. Funds are allocated on an annual basis each July. Federal funds are given to the governor based on a formula of needs. They work with the State Workforce Development Board and carry out a state plan. The funds are allocated to local government entities such as mayors and townships, boards, and based on WIOA Dislocated Worker, Youth, and Wagner-Pizer, Michigan agencies are given dollars to support programs. This slide Karen is going to help me with.
Thanks. I think it's really important, and I appreciate Belinda talking about the, how is the money funded? And this is why we always want to reinforce the importance of workforce development boards to be able to understand that there's a state one that works with the governor and it works with all the agencies with the titles, but there's also a workforce development board locally. And so part of that workforce development board is supposed to have an adult education representation. Sometimes it might not be an adult education. Sometimes they might consider adult education a community college, but it's very important to understand and know your workforce development board. You might not ever become a member, but you can absolutely participate and listen to the meetings, because this is where they determine the dollars and new initiatives and programs that might come into your region and that would flow through most likely a Michigan Works agency or other agencies that provide title services. So your workforce development board, and it's written in the language, so it's nothing that really seriously kind of comes out, well, we need this person, we need this person. It's in the language that you have to have a minimum of at least 2 members have to be business and local areas. And it's only a minimum, so there could be more businesses represented. It has to have labor organizations. It has to have the higher institution. And it has to have someone that's from Wagner-Peiser, which is the unemployment, and it has to have other entities, trainers, other community-based organizations, government entities, such as transportation, housing, and it has to have all kinds of funders and supports that would help the Michigan Works Agency and the boards run. So again, I just want to stress that it's really important to know who your workforce development board members are, because they're the ones that really dictate the dollars that are coming through from the federal government. And they really listen to the township organization boards or the mayors or whoever is responsible for or dispersing the dollars. So thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Karen. So let's talk about the WIOA titles. There are 5 different WIOA titles. We are Title I, and we fall underneath the Adult Dislocated Worker and Youth Programs administrated by the Department of Labor. Title II is Adult Education and Family Literacy. Title III, Employment Services under the Wagner-Peiser. Title IV is Vocational Rehabilitation. And Title V, General Provisions. Now, what are the requirements for participants as an adult? As an adult, they must be 18 years or older. Males should be registered with Select Services. They must be authorized to work, and they must be a resident of their city or county. Some others would include they need to be a low-income family of 4 making under $26,000, have a reading level below 8th grade, someone who receives public and food assistance, veterans or spouses, and someone who has barriers such as a single parent with children under the age of 18. Dislocated workers requirements is someone who has been terminated or laid off, someone who is eligible or have exhausted their unemployment, someone who has been terminated or laid off and not eligible for unemployment, a person who has been impacted by company layoffs due to business closures. Other requirements include a spouse of armed forces of active duty and is unemployed due to relocation or income deployment.
So for a second there, just Belinda, thank you for who participants are eligible. So I want you to stop and think about your adult ed program. Pretty much a lot of the students that you have are actually eligible based on whether they're WIOA eligible or dislocated. So think about this throughout the whole conversation and all the supports that that Belinda can provide. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay, I love it. Keep on going. Now, the part that I love the most is the Learn to Earn program and our GED programs. So the Learn to Earn is a program where students can earn stipends up to $200 a week. And the Learn to Earn program helps to remove financial barriers of having to choose between working and returning to school. This program is a great fit for anyone who is willing to commit up to 20 hours per week and is looking to pursue training or better employment after credential attainment. Also, this program is about 4 to 6 months. And they can also get their high school diploma. So if someone wants to get their high school diploma, they must be 11th grade or higher in high school. So what kind of trainings do we have? We have 5 different kinds of training. We have construction and trade, such as electrical, heating and cooling, HVAC, transportation, such as CDLA training, as well as CDLB training. We have healthcare, such as certified nursing assistant, information technology, such as IT and cybersecurity, and manufacturing, which is in partnership with Focus Hope, where participants can get hands-on training with companies such as DET.
Belinda, this is Patrick. Can I add something to what you were saying? So as just like what Karen was suggesting, as you all are listening, some of these programs that we're discussing may be under a different name within your region. And so the programming is very similar, but some of the opportunities may exist in other Michigan work agencies, but maybe don't go by that particular name. So as Belinda was referring to the Learn and Earn program, the Learn and Earn program in Detroit is distinctly different than perhaps other opportunities throughout the state, but there are similar types of programs that would provide for training at the payment of someone to complete that high school credential, to be co-enrolled with adult education. And so that's something that as you're talking or you're working with your Michigan Works agencies, it would be really important to establish a better understanding of the programs that they provide so that you can understand the nuances in that. The same thing with these trainings that are offered here that Belinda is talking about. These are the identified training programs for the Metro Detroit area and the city of Detroit. Your particular training, your particular Michigan Works agencies may have these trainings, may have additional trainings based on the needs of that particular region. And so we always talk about this, the benefits and the joys as well as the pitfalls of regional control within our state. And this is where you see some of those nuances that we were talking about at the beginning of the presentation. So thank you, Belinda. I just wanted to make that distinction for folks if they have questions about that.
Sure. Thank you, Patrick. I think it's important to say that it is based on your regions. And so maybe in the UP, they might add agriculture as training. And when we talk about construction skilled trades, inside those are a multitude of different types of trainings. And same with transportation. It might be high-low forklift, it might be CDL, A or B. It might be, different, and it might be HAZWOPER. It might be different things that are attached to each one. And obviously we know IT and healthcare is pretty broad.
Thank you. So steps to training and educational goals. There is a 5-step process that we go through. First, there's an introduction to service. You will come in and someone will come in and they will receive an overview of Detroit at work and answer some basic questions. Second, an orientation and intake. So they will attend an orientation either in person or online to learn about the kinds of programs and training that we offer. Third, there's a visual tour and assessment. This is where they would take a tour of each of the schools that they're interested in and let us know what they thought about them. Fourth, there's an assessment and registration. So here is where they would come in and they would take a CASAS. The CASAS last about 2 to 5 hours. And it basically is not a pass or fail, but it just lets us know what reading and math level the client has. And lastly, the notice of approval. This is where the client will receive a notice of approval from Detroit at Work or the training provider to confirm their acceptance.
And so, Belinda, it's nice that you brought this up, because how does the participant know and understand this process, as well as appointments or how does that work so that they're not leaving, coming back, or they're just not knowing what the next steps are?
So we make an initial phone call to our clients, we introduce ourselves to them, and we explain the process. Normally, a client would come in only 2 times, once to take their test, and the next time would be to do their registration. Now, we could do their testing and their registration all at the same time, but testing could take about 2 to 5 hours, depending on the client, and registration takes about 2 hours.
And so what do you do when they get the CASAS testing?
So when they get their COSTAS testing, we look at their scores and we make sure that their scores are in tune with whatever the training provider has. So if they come in and they say, I would like to do CDL training, sometimes there's a 5th grade reading level, a 5th grade math level. And so we just want to make sure that those test scores coincide. And if they don't, then we will explain the situation and then we will ask them to take the test again. And we have information where we can provide testing material for them to practice at home. And if they have any questions, we're always here to help. That answer your question?
Thank you.
So things that they have to bring during the registration process. So this is after they take their COSTAS testing and they come back for registration. This process, like I said, takes about 2 hours. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer with me and my clients because I like to give them coffee, I like to make them comfortable, and I like to get to know them. So they need to have proof of identity, such as a valid driver's license, a Michigan driver's license. They need to have a social security card, proof of income, a copy of their resume, and we also ask them to make an account on our Michigan Talent Connect. So services that we provide. We have supportive services to help clients remove barriers, such as technology devices. So sometimes we give laptops out and hotspots. We can provide gas cards, transportation, such as Lyft. We have work-related tools. So sometimes they might need some tools that they need for work or for training, and we help with that. Uniforms, and in some cases, childcare.
Would you be able to elaborate more on how you do the childcare? Like if it's like paying a provider fee or like actually having like a GSRP classroom that the students have their kids dropped off at, or what does that look like?
Karen, would you be able to chime in on this one?
Sure. So there's we have a lot of partners that we can refer them to childcare that's affordable. We have actually a career resource navigator, not a career, but a resource navigator whose main job is to support the career coaches. And so when someone comes in and they say, hey, I have childcare barriers, we can go to her. She has a listing of different partnerships. We also have funding that supports if there's some like emergency or some needs, like I can't pay this month's childcare bills, or we can support that too. So there's a lot of different fundings that we use. Some of it is through Kellogg or some initiative, but we do have supportive service dollars. Similar to what she said, transportation, if they need bus, or they need gas cards, usually if they're in a training, they get gas cards every 3 weeks. Uniforms, we've had some people that, have needs just an outfit even to interview. And so we're able to support them. But yes, the childcare, and especially if you're a PATH provider, you get more intense services with the childcare, but we do have a list of partners that's open, that's willing to take them. Also, we might refer them to DHHS if they're eligible for My Child.
And I also like to add that with our Learn to Earn program and GED programs, we do provide technology devices for them. So they always leave here with a laptop, their GED book, as well as a calculator. So some of our basic supportive services that we have workshops such as resume writing and interviewing skills, computer literacy classes. We have a resource room, so just in case they do not have a laptop and we're not able to provide one for them, they can always come here to our resource room. CASAS testing, as we spoke about, and work fees. We have employment services, and we also have financial coaching. So I would like to introduce you to one of my GED students. This is one of my proud moments. His name is Devontae Reed. Devontae Reed is 26 and he is seeking a better life for himself. He's a single father of one who realized he needed to make some changes in his life. Devontae hit a roadblock and has been working different jobs to provide for his family. He started his GED program on February 2nd, and when he completes his GED program, he'll be eligible for training. His next step is heating and cooling, and his goal is to become an HVAC technician and start his own business. When Devontae came into the center to take his CASA test, he was very upset. He came in with a hood on his head, he came in with some sunglasses, and of course he came in with his mask. And I spoke to Devontae, I asked Devontae, what was wrong? And he admitted to me that before he came to take the test, family members and friends disencouraged him and told him, I don't understand why you're taking this test, you're not gonna pass. And he was very upset. It took Devontae maybe about 2.5 hours to finish his CASAS testing. And when he finished his CASAS testing, his reading score read 11th grade reading and his math score was 9th grade. When he saw his test, he just started to cry. And I was just so happy for him and tried to encourage him that he can do it. He can do the best. He can do the best for his family. And to this day, Devontae and I, we still stay in communication with each other. We have to make monthly phone calls to our clients. And sometimes I don't even get to make those phone calls because they call me. My clients actually call me and check in on me and give me a rundown of things that's going on in their lives. And I just spoke to Devontae, and yes, he is still in the program right now, and he is working right now in food services, but he is looking so forward to finishing his GED, and I'm going to be there every step of the way with him. I told him that when he gets finished, I was going to take him out to lunch.
Yep, and he can then actually transition easily into our HVAC trainings.
Yes,
So,
it is waiting for him. I'll be so happy when he finishes. It is waiting for him.
So can you take us, oh, keep going, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wondered when back a few slides ago, you had alluded to like the 2-hour process for WIOA registration. Can you take them through the process of how you do it and then what is in that registration packet?
So the registration packet comes with about, I would say maybe 25 pages. It can be very daunting to some of our clients who don't understand the lingo of what they're about to sign. So we sit there and we try to make sure that they understand every single piece of paper that they are about to put their signature on. Some of our clients like to read everything and they always have questions. So we need to make sure that we are all using the same language and that they understand and that they are comfortable with the information. So one of the documents that they have to sign is called a trainer's agreement. And inside this document, it asks clients to make sure that they check in with their career coach. It also stipulates that they are responsible for their attendance. And it also says things where if clients decide that they do not want to be in the program any longer, that they must connect with their career coach and let us know.
Are there other pages? Is there other things that you find that they're really questioned?
So males have to be registered with Selective Service, and sometimes we have males that are not registered with Selective Service, so we need to explain that information to them and then have them sign up. And if they choose to not sign some of the documents, we do have a document that they can sign that they will waiver that information. There's a media agreement on there. There's also information that tells them that their social security number will be used for data purposes only, just to see whether or not the program has been efficient and effective for other people as well. There's also an IEP plan. It gives the participant a visual look at how their career plan is going. So it gives them the start to finish, the introduction, and then towards the end when they get approval. And it gives them a system where they can rate whether or not the training program is good for them. So it asks questions like, is this training close to your home? Is it close to, will you need services? We also have a sheet in there where they can list their own barriers. So if they are having problems with transportation, what kind of barriers that we can help them with that will stop them from taking this training or taking a class? And we try to weave out those kind of barriers. So sometimes it could be they need food, they need transportation, or they may have some kind of disability that would stop them from taking the training or finishing the training. And we just really try to horn in on those barriers to try to help them, because we want everyone to succeed.
So this really takes about 2 hours to complete?
It actually does. To sit down with a client, you do not want to rush any paperwork in front of them. You want to make sure that they understand, and you want to take the time and the care to put yourself in their place. What is it that they're going through? And you want to make sure that they really just understand. I mean, like for me, I have a few clients that has taken about 4 hours. And that 4 hours is it consists of tears, laughter. They give you their whole, and clients come and they want to give you their whole entire story, because they want you to understand sometimes they are in a position where they are struggling, and they're here because they want the help. So not only are we career coaches, we're also teachers, we're also social workers, we are mothers, and we're here to listen to them. So on a personal note, on a daily basis, I come through the doors at Detroit at work, and I get to meet some extraordinary people. Sometimes they are my heroes. They are our clients. They have goals, they have dreams, and they have struggles, they have hardship. But one thing they have in common is they have hope. And through WIOA and our services, we are able to assist our clients to reach their aspirations. Just imagine the possibilities. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank
Yeah,
you
so
so
at this
much.
time,
Belinda.
Yeah, I think we're going to go through, because there was a lot of questions in the chat. And so this is probably going to take the bulk. And also, if anyone has any questions about services that are specific to the Michigan Works agencies. And again, put your, if you're a director, put your student's hat, or put your, what you have programming, and how this program can tie in and how it will support the students. So go ahead, Patrick.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that, Karen. Belinda, I wonder if you can go back to the slide where you talked about the steps to training and education goals. Yeah, the next one. What I think was something that came up here was when you talk about that intake process. It's that steps to training, where you had the step 1, step 2, step 3.
The one before it. Yep.
There we go. Yep. There we go. Yep. It's okay. I wonder if you could talk a little bit, and Karen as well, and Karen, maybe you could also describe a little bit about the way that your agency is set up, where you have an adult education provider that is within your broader agency of you working with Detroit at Work. And what the question that I'm getting at for both of you is, where do you see adult education partners being a part of this intake process for someone that's transitioning into or looking to transition into training. I specifically can see part of that orientation or CASAS testing, adult education providers being integral, as they have access to those participants and access to some of that documentation that could be helpful in that intake process. But would love for you to share that.
Karen?
I'll start and then you can interject. So I see this as very important, and this is probably one of the critical things that we have at Southwest Economic Solutions. We do have a learning lab. This learning lab has been around since I think 2000, I want to say 11. And so we provide ESL, GED services, ESL, GED, ABE services. So we've been doing this. We really use we write a lot of grants, but we also, it's Title II funds that kind of run the program. And so usually what happens, despite COVID, we actually do orientations, and now we're doing it virtually with them. So if they have a new class going, and sometimes they have open enrollment enrolling, we do an orientation. Usually once a month, we'll say, hey, we're going to come into these different classes and we're going to talk about all the services that we provide. A lot of times, Caitlin, who manages our lab, might have someone who's interested in someone who might be graduating. Hey, they're interested in some job training, and she will refer them to us. We also used to have, and we're going to start that back up. We used to have ESL classes that were actually on site because Michigan Works needs to really support more of the ESL clients and customers. So we provide that ESL instruction on site. And it's not that we pay them, but we just think it's another venue for them to do that. And those participants who might be interested in, and we let them know in our center that we have these classes. And so if they know anybody that can participate, we do that. But I also think it's important, not only does it help us because we do orientation, but then, also from the aspect of the lab is that they will refer people to us. If there's a job opening, like we had job openings at Marathon or Wolverine Packaging or, some labor, what we do is then we let them know. We send them flyers, not only about trainings that are up and coming, but also, hey, there's some positions open. Do you have anyone that might be interested in employment? And so we really use our school quite a bit. And I think it's a two-way process and how we can help them. And sometimes too, if they've already taken the CASAS testing, which is super nice, we don't have to, again, do the CASAS testing at our site because they've already got a score. And so that really helps them too, that they don't have to spend the time and retest. Did that answer some of your question? Is there anything you want to add to that? Do you have any conversations with Caitlin or the lab or with anyone else? Oh, and we also are required, because we're in Detroit, the Learn to Earn is done at DPS, Detroit Public Schools. So they're the ones that have that contract. Yep. And so we work a lot with DPS.
Yes. So just to piggyback off of that, yeah, sometimes we do have clients that score really low on the CASAS test, and that's where we do refer them to the learning lab to just help them try to pick up their skills a little bit and then retest again. And then we do have a great relationship. The Learn to Earn is in partnership with DPS. So yeah.
Great, I appreciate that. It's kind of going back maybe one or two slides to Belinda to talking about the eligibility. What is your kind of professional stance on, if I'm working with an adult who is interested in training opportunities, would you strongly encourage them to apply for services? What is that? At what juncture would you encourage them? Because, frankly, I think my professional thing is that we got to get them signed up for anything and everything that's going to be beneficial to them, right? And expose them and have access to them. Ultimately, as adults, they have to be the ones to choose to follow through on that plan, to execute. Certainly, their educational gains are going to perhaps limit some of the training opportunities until they have a high educational functioning level that they can do some of that training or reading or math skills. But what are both of your professional takes on enrolling in or co-enrolling in some of these services at the same time?
So a participant If a participant is doing a Learn to Earn program or a GED program, it would be impossible for them to do a training at the same time because it's very time consuming. The GED program and Learn to Earn program, they start about 8 o'clock and they don't end until about 3:30. And so that would be about the same time that a training would take place Monday through Friday.
And we do, because when the trainers, they have a prerequisite form of what their skill set is and what they require. And so majority of people fall into that in our adult education population, just from my experience, they all pretty much qualify for services and training. But you're right, that Learn to Earn is a full time. That's why they get stipends. They get $200 a week to participate. Some trainings do also give you stipends, but it's through a different funder and through the training program. And so I think it's really in the best interest when adult ed program meets with their participants, when they do an ALP and they talk about what are your goals, what are your careers, have you, are you looking for a job, or is there something that you're, looking for a job, or you're looking for a career? And so, if they're looking for something and they have an interest, they really should visit the center just to go through an orientation. It's not very long. They can just do basic services where they can utilize the resource room, or they can upload a resume. They can meet with our business service rep to talk about jobs that are available, and they can kind of get help with their resume, and there's workshops they can attend. But if they're interested in training, they should go through the process, and understand what's available out there. Majority of people, they get one training for every, I think, is it 2 or 3 years, Belinda?
3 years, every 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're talking about a CDL, which can cost for some trainers to, $5,000 to $10,000, and it's free. They have to be there every day. They get a CDL, and the trainers have ties in with employers right away. So 99% already have a job even before they finish the training. So, if they're interested in any type of manufacturing, if they're interested in healthcare, IT, we can absolutely direct them, and we can, and they get a paid training, which is like awesome. wish I had, but they also have to explore the trainers. It's not like, oh, here's a trainer for you. It's exactly what Belinda said. Here's a list of, you're interested in CDL. These are the 4 or 5 that we work with. Go and do a drive-by, call them, do some research on the internet. Is it close to where you live? Is it something you're interested in? Are you gonna, do you get the vibe when you come in that this is someplace you want to be? If you're not comfortable, there's other options. So we don't really push them and tell them this is where you have to go. It's mandatory that they do some type of exploration and determine which ones they feel comfortable with in the training.
Right. So that's why sometimes it takes a few hours to sit down and talk with our clients, because we are trying to pull that information out of them and to make sure that this is the direction that they want to go. And the Learn to Earn program is a virtual setting. So it is, students are actually sitting in front of a laptop for those many hours, taking those classes.
Great. We touched upon this a little bit earlier, but again, I wonder if we could just reiterate a couple of questions about the specificity of some of these programs, and are they unique just to Detroit at Work? Are there other similar programs like this in other agencies? So I wonder if you both could just talk about that and maybe generally talk about how someone might have a better understanding of the resources that the local Michigan Works agency both has, like some recommendations for an adult ed provider.
I think for an adult ed provider, they should find a key person, and don't think you can talk to the director or the person running, because they are, just from my experience, they are so busy running a center with multiple programs, PATH, Dislocated Worker, Wagner, Pizer. So they oversee all those programs at that one stop. So it's really finding that key person that will help you. And in my opinion, it's really finding that career coach or that case manager, because they're the ones that are, to me, really are critical. Besides the business service rep that's tied in with employment and trying to find jobs and employers, but that's a whole other beast. But I think when it comes to WIOA eligibility and how they can help. It's really finding that case manager who understands, knows what's available. They know, for us in Detroit, sometimes, wait a minute, there's no more dollars yet. We have to stop CDL training because the dollars that are specific that are coming through, we don't have training dollars for that. And it's like, whoa, everybody wants, CDL, they want that truck driving. And so monies vary, but they all have training dollars. And it does not hurt. Sometimes, when there's no training dollars, they're put on a wait list, but it's first come, first serve. So as soon as there's training dollars, like, oh, we just got another 20,000 from this. And so I'm taking it right off the list. And so even if it might not be immediate and they're going to school, have them go in and register and be put on a wait list for trainings, because that during that time, they're still going to really build up their education. And I always cringe sometimes too, because in our population in Detroit, some of our students come in, Belinda had that great story about, and we always applaud when we get someone who's got a really great CASA score, but a lot of them come in way below a 6th grade level. And so the trainers, because it's such a shortage in jobs, trainers know that. And so they've kind of, loosened up their prerequisites. It used to be, depending on, obviously, like healthcare, IT, it might be a higher, but they, most of them, they lower it to a 6th grade math and reading. And you don't necessarily have to have a GED. You could be working on your GED while doing it, or, and I always just think, oh man, don't do that to that person. You have to really instill the importance of that. Yeah, this is our prerequisite, but we want someone who's going to do this, and we want you to continue with the GED, and we really support the education and you continuing, improving your test scores. But it does vary. Again, the training opportunities vary based on your region, based on your dollar allocation, and based on, what are the trends that are in your region. So for us, obviously it's construction, it's transportation, healthcare, and manufacturing and IT. But for others, again, it could be agriculture, it could be healthcare. It really depends on what's your big businesses in your region. If you have a hospital, then you know that healthcare is going to be your major employer, and that's going to be major dollars put for training. I don't know if that answers it. If I went a roundabout way of answering.
Oh, but good. Anything else you want to add to that, Belinda?
So I just wanted to add about the waiting list part of it. Yeah, sometimes they do have to go on a waiting list, and we don't want them to think that we have forgotten about them. So we do make sure that we check in with them monthly and say, hey, it hasn't happened yet, but just be patient, and we'll get with you. You're on the waiting list. You're on the waiting list. And sometimes it happens, and they're off that waiting list, and they're so appreciative that you have stuck in with them, and just making sure that you haven't forgotten about them. And I think that when you have the kind of relationship where you are, you're looking at them as friends, that they need the help and you want to help them. They really do appreciate it. So sometimes it is a bit of a struggle when we are, waiting for the funding dollars to drop, but the relationship that you build and the bond that you build with your clients is so much more important.
Absolutely. The next question comes from Sandy, and she's talking about, how do we find out who the members of our local workforce development board are, and how do we find out who the adult representative is? Could either of you talk a little bit about that?
Actually, our board meets monthly, and it's public. So what you need to do is go to your Michigan Works, and usually it's publicized. The minutes will be there, the members will be there, and their meeting schedules. So they have to do it. It's the law, I guess. And so you go to the website, find out about us, or whatever, the board or whatever, find out. They'll give you a list of who the board members are for the workforce development. And then they give you a schedule and minutes, and some of it's recorded too, so you can actually watch it and participate. And you should just, dip in and get a taste of who your board is. It's very interesting, very unique. I've been to several of the board meetings in Detroit, and it's interesting how you have businesses and you have labor unions in the same room, and they might talk about, we had a contract. And so I went to one meeting because they were going to approve one of our contracts with them, and because we provide HVAC and electric. And this one labor guy was like, I'm just not feeling it because I think way back in the day, some of our Southwest Solutions agency is unionized. And so they were like, well, you know, they went on strike. And so I don't think we should, you know, do this. And it was like, oh my goodness sakes, you know, first of all, that was a different entity of 501, you know, totally different entity than what we have. And, you know, they just don't know the full story about why the workers went on strike. And so it was kind of like, oh my gosh, they have that much control and power because, you know, this one member, you know, bringing this up. So I always think it's important because you could help clarify, you know, information and just, you know, I don't know. It's just really intriguing going there and listening to them and then also learning about, it's almost like going to a legislative meeting, like, hey, this is their priority. This is what they're thinking. Or this is the mayor, his workforce development, you know, his person's coming in advisory from his advisory board and they're going to talk about some special initiative. And then it's like, okay, well, we got to figure out how we're going to do this. How are we going to, you know, same, I mean, that's how that learn to earn. And then we also have skills for life, work skills for life. And so that is a Detroit specific initiative where you looking for a job, you can get a job at the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit, you work 2 days a week and then 3 days a week you go through training and you get paid. It's like your work schedule. And then when you're done, you've got a credential and then that can lead to another credential. And so this is a special initiative that the mayor said, you know, and he's super proud of it. And he's really, I mean, that's almost like what we have to promote too at our career centers. You know, have you thought about, you know, applying for this job in Detroit? You can work for the city of Detroit, great benefits and all this, and then you get free training, you know, and you get paid for your training. And so, but yeah, it's mandatory. It's on their website. Check it out. Interesting.
I'm just learning. I'm just learning about the board members and all that information. So maybe next time I could give a presentation about that.
Yes. Go to a meeting because you'll be
Absolutely. Belinda, I wonder if you could stop sharing for a minute and I could actually show an example that Karen was talking about that I just pulled up as she was putting that out there. So here, Sandy is specifically, as Karen was talking about, local workforce force. So this is the Genesee, Shiawassee, FUM, Michigan Works, GST Michigan Works. Here's the website. The About Us, if you click on it, goes to our board. It shows the list of the board members. You can see right here. And then it even, as you scroll down here, talks about business, labor, education, adult education. Here are the representatives for adult education, which reminds me that many times in our own areas, our own spaces, our own region, perhaps our adult education we don't know who those adult education representatives are, or maybe those adult education representatives are not communicating with everyone else of some of the conversations that are happening because they don't assume that maybe others want to know that information, right? Or maybe that there needs to be a space within local regions. You know, I'm just thinking about as you meet regionally, perhaps it would be great for, and I know some regions do this, it would be great for that adult education representative to maybe give a report or an update at your regional meetings or in your local, like Wayne Monroe and your Oakland County and on those kinds of things, to just share that information and just to remind folks that we do have representation there, because sometimes over time, maybe we lose track or sight of that and that there might be some representation that actually does already exist. So just wanted to share that. So you can go right back ahead and share again, Belinda, but I just thought that was important to exactly word by word what Karen was describing was exactly what is evident there. And that was just one example. So going back into the questions for you all, one of the, Karen Ling had a question about one of the disconnects between Michigan Works and adult ed is that adult ed is required to test every 40 hours. Is that the same for Michigan Works with post-testing? Yes. And what can we do to avoid the testing burnout or sharing access between the two agencies, or any suggestions on how to make that smoother?
We have other agencies that we work with too. And so they test. And so when they come, they actually, the director sends us, and we have that form that they fill out that we can share. DESE doesn't, But like for our learning lab and all that, and our other trainings, we have a form that says, we can share data information, because you sure don't want them to, Karen, I totally get it. You don't want them to test and test again. And so this other agency, she gives us a test. She's like, hey, I'm sending someone over and here's this CASAS test. And it's like, oh, we don't have to test them. That's great. We're not responsible for the testing, post-testing. So it's a great MSG for us, because we're held to that same thing that the EFL gain, but we usually really work on just, the credential and employment. And so if you want, we can definitely post-test, but we are held to 40 hours, absolutely. And usually what happens is that provider that they're giving us, they're sending them up to us, sends us the test scores. He doesn't that client doesn't necessarily have that in his hand as he's bringing it over. It's usually like, hey, he'll say, I already took a CASAS test. Oh, well, where did you take it? Then it's like, a phone call or a conversation. And, can you send me the test scores? Because we sure don't want to test them again. Absolutely don't want to do that. But we are held to the 40 hours. And so that learn to earn and all that, 40 hours, yeah.
And I know for us, for the Learn to Earn program and for the GED program, the testing for the 40 hours, after 40 hours, it just really, we just try to help them help our clients understand that it's a way to see how much you have progressed from the first time that you have taken this CASAS test. And a lot of times, I have never encountered anyone who had any grief about taking the test after 40 hours. Like I said, sometimes they call me and they say, my teacher or my instructor said that my 40 hours is up and I have to go and take another CASAS test, because they want to see how far they have come. And when they take it, a lot of them just want to, especially in a GED program, just want to go, well, I think that I'm ready to take the science part of my GED practice test. Can I go ahead and do that? And so it's just a way to help them learn more, to understand that they have been, improving, or if they haven't, what more do they need to work on?
Absolutely. I really appreciate that response, Belinda. And I think this is not to muddy the waters, because I know we've got folks from many different levels. This is something that when you look at the infrastructure agreement that you have with your local Michigan Works agency, these are the types of things that could be prudent to have a discussion about, either in-kind contributions that adult education and Michigan Works are making to one another, or actually documented within that infrastructure agreement, because this is the space where it's really cutting through the red tape, right? I mean, we're all working to help this participant because we have shared metrics around this participant. Adult education's got to get that high school completion or the EFL gain. The career training and technical component piece is also included, as well as that EFL gain on the Michigan Works development side. So I just think that would be something to keep in mind as well when we talk about some of these specifics about how to partner together. All right, the next question is from Brianne, and I wonder if she could elaborate a little bit more, is could the requirements for adult clients be reviewed again, specifically required grading level and income information? So Brianne, I don't know if you want to, remember what that was specifically referencing. Was that a particular training, or was that referencing just general WIOA eligibility? And that's okay if you can't unmute.
Could you repeat her question again?
She's asking about the requirements for adult clients be reviewed again, specifically required grading level and income information.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute off.
Oh, that's okay.
I guess I was kind of thinking through, like, how do we know when to refer? Some of the feedback I've gotten, I'm with the Macomb Intermediate School District, is sometimes we're referring students to Michigan Works and the students don't actually qualify. Their reading scores are too low. And so then they're feeling a little defeated as they come back to those adult education centers. So I guess I'm looking for a little more clarification. I know programs and trainings differ, but if you could speak to, in general, what's the reading level needed for these programs? And then you also talked a little bit about income very quickly, maybe for a family of 4, and if you could just repeat that information again. And when you were talking about the adult slide, when you were talking about participants include, and you talked about requirements, does that help kind of clarify?
So Belinda, what is your, how do you do income? How do you verify income?
So the way that we verify income is we ask clients to bring in any kind of income that they have received in the last 6 months. So I know that now I'm doing September through March income. So if someone has worked during those times, we ask them for a pay stub. So usually if they have a pay stub that they've been getting paid every week, we ask them to print out information about that. If they have received unemployment, we ask them to print out their redetermination letter. And then we add up all of that information at the end, and that will give us their income for the 6 months. And then an annual, we would times that by 2, and then that would give us their annual. And sometimes a lot of our clients have not worked. They have not received any kind of unemployment. And so in those cases there, we have to zero those out. We do not ask for information about if they're receiving, we ask information about if they are receiving food stamps, but we do not include that information and calculate that information within their income.
And usually if they have food stamps, they're pretty much eligible.
Yeah.
And we also look at, we have these guidelines, the federal, the poverty level and then the ALICE and all that. We that's usually our guiding too. If a family of this, usually this is the range. And so you calculate it out to see if they fit in the range of a single, single with a, family. I mean, so there's deciding factors and it has to be earned income. So if they're getting a disability, that's not considered really an earned income. Is that true? I know that in some instances we don't look at earned, if you've got a disability or Social Security, we don't count that as an earned income.
So,
Good morning, Mackenzie. This is Sarah Strobeck calling you from the MIS.
Go ahead, Belinda, while
She's getting ready to submit the sketches for the new counselor
oh,
academy.
so if a participant does receive some kind of SSI, we do include that, but it's really sometimes it's a very low number.
And when it comes to grade level, most of the trainings really start at a 6th grade level. So if they come below a 6th grade level, we really try to push them towards our schools or other agencies that are close by, whether it's a literacy center or adult ed program, to kind of bring it up. And then we'll tell them to come back in, we'll test you again, or if you have test scores, bring them in so we can use those if it's recent. But, it's really just based on what's training. We sure hate to have them come in and do that and find out, they are at a lower level. And usually 6th grade is probably going to be your lowest. And it's also based on what they want to do. If they want to do IT, most IT trainings, they really need a GED or they really need some higher level because of the technical language. So we, you have to steer them in and, talk to them about, and Belinda does a great job,
And a lot of our clients do come in with great reading scores, 6th grade and above. And we also, sometimes I like to give pre-CASA tests to them. I send it to them at home, or sometimes I'll review certain things so they can get familiar with what they're going to be, what the CASA test actually looks like. Because sometimes, the unknown, fear of the unknown, I don't know what it looks like. So when they finally look at it, they're like, oh, this is, but when they have a chance to review it and look it over, they normally do fairly well.
That's great. Another question, and I would appreciate what both of you would say about this, is that the question was, how do we know what services our local Michigan Works Agency offers? It's a very broad question, very general question, but what are, I guess, putting yourself in a provider's shoes, how do we start that conversation, get that started? What do you recommend?
So can you elaborate on the question again? I want to make sure.
Yeah, so how might someone approach, so Belinda, how might they approach you, Detroit at Work, or how do providers approach and learn about the training opportunities that you have available? Do you go out and do you do trainings to let outside agencies know about the training opportunities that you have available within Detroit at Work? How do you share that information, and how might someone go about reaching out to their local Michigan Works agency and asking about what kinds of trainings. Should they go to like the director? Should they go to the career coach? Who's kind of the business relations person? Who's kind of the person maybe that would be a good contact to possibly look at getting in contact with about that?
So we have about 9 different centers throughout Detroit. And so, many of our clients that come to us have already visited a Detroit at Work center. And, here at the Bagley Center, we're such a happy small family. So a lot of times they don't know about us, but they get referred to us by other other sister agencies. And they say, they always say, oh, I didn't know that you were here. And then sometimes they want to transfer over to the Bagley Center. There are also times where we have clients that, they just know about Detroit at Work and they look on our website and they make the phone call. We do have a calling center where, depending on where the participant lives, they will be referred to that center there. And sometimes if the center cannot handle the amount of clients, and they will refer them to us. We have something that we look at every single day called the Bagley Sheet. And someone takes phone calls and they put it on the Bagley Sheet, and every day we get back to our clients within 24 hours and just try to find out how can we help them.
We do have an outreach person too, and he goes to different community events. We also, we're located by Secretary of State, and so having a table there. We have a nice board, with all of our opportunities. But his outreach too, he goes into the communities, he also goes into the schools. And I remember historically, I used to work in Novi, and we used to make that trip to the Michigan Works Agency in Novi and talk to the director. We would schedule a meeting with them to sit there and say, hey, can someone come and do an orientation? Can, what's out there, what's available? And so the more you get to know them, then, the more that, and you refer people to them, it's a win-win. We also did that in Okemos. We contacted, and that was really, that was a hard nut to crack at the capital area. But they came and they did orientations for our ESL. The first one they did was like, 100, slides, and, they're not going to get that. They're not going to understand anything you said, and they definitely can't, read that. But, it's just starting that process and having them come in and do an orientation, and I think it's just really going in there, especially if you buy a small center. To me, a smaller center, the better. If you have a little branch, hey, we want to know about this. What do you do? And the supportive services are required. It's written in your budget. You have an allotment that you have to prove that you have dollars that you can use it to buy technology. You can use it to, it's not like this huge list where, you can, I can help pay for your, this and, your medical or whatever. But some instances, there's different funds that you can use to pay for those emergency funds. And if not, there's other groups that do that, and other partnerships that they have connections with that can help pay for emergency housing or food.
And sometimes we even get referrals from actual training providers where someone is, they know of a CDL class and they go to that training provider and says, I want to take CDL classes. And then the training provider would be like, well, try going to Detroit at Work first to see whether or not you can get funded before you actually, pay out of pocket.
And I appreciate that from both of you. And you both are extremely nice in your delivery of that response. But I'm going to go one step further and say, this is where I also think it becomes so critical. And Belinda, you could probably speak to this too, is that I think adult education programs, we have a responsibility to share about the programming that we provide as well, because we have this assumption sometimes of, well, our training partners should let us know about the programs that we provide. But conversely, it's important for our training providers in our Michigan Works centers to understand the resources that we have available. because they may be working with a client that has transitioned out of our program, but they also get many referrals, as Belinda was talking about, of someone who still needs those remedial services, who still needs to finish their high school equivalency or diploma, that needs to go back and is looking at the career technical, all the different aspects of all, workplace literacy. It's just so important. I can't emphasize that enough, that communication that Karen was talking about is so critical, and it really can't just be the director to the director. It really needs to be someone like a career coach like Belinda, understanding the career or having contact with other, or some level of contact with your counselor or your navigator at your program, because that trickle down just doesn't always work sometimes, right? Because our jobs and our responsibilities are so vast, and sometimes one person can't do it all. You really need that team approach. And I think that would be my advice too, is just, make that time to have that commitment and to share that information. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be glamorous. But I still, one of the best trainings I ever went to was the Michigan Works Association did a training about all of their eligibility for all of their programs. And it was so eye-opening. And I was the only adult education representative in the room. And I would say, well, this is how adult education would intersect. And they were just like, we had no idea. We just thought that you guys did GED night school. Now we can have a whole discussion about why that is, and we can have hard feelings about that. But the reality is our training partners, this is me putting on an adult ed hat, our training partners and our workforce development partners are wanting the same information that we want to know for the benefit of the participants that they serve. So I'll get off my soapbox on that, but Belinda, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so to add on to that, information is critical. It is crucial to our participants. We have a lot of different trainings, but I must say that my favorite is the Learn to Earn in GED. I'm always encouraging them, and I share stories with them, as well as, we have clients who are from 18 years old to 60 years old, and they're afraid, they're scared, the information that they have, that they receive from someone else is not true, and they need you to be there to clarify that information for them. And, I share my own story about why I decided to go back to get my master's degree in higher education, because I'm a true believer that education is, it's critical. It's like you die without furthering your knowledge. You have to be able to have that knowledge. And so the relationship that you built with your client, the information that you provide for them, again, I cannot stress how important that is. And just reaching out to, if I can't help them, I'm Googling, I'm looking for places for them. If it's something that we can't provide for them, I'm there for them, yeah, so that strong relationship that a client and career coach has is very important.
And I have to also say, with Patrick, you're very nice to say I'm nice, but being an adult ed for a long 20 plus years, when we got our Michigan Works Agency, and also working in my previous job, working with them, it was super eye-opening. And I think you have to be aggressive, and I think that people really, they just don't understand what adult education is. And if you don't make yourself noticeable, because they have this misnomer about, oh, it's just executive, it's night school, it's GED, there's probably a fee. So there's so many agencies in Detroit, so many nonprofits and so many literacy councils that, hey, these are things I know, I'm familiar with. And so I'm going to refer them to Dominican or Sienna or whoever that I know provides the services. And so if you're not very visible and you think that they're going to come out and talk to you just because they want to build that partnership, it's probably just not going to happen. Unless we're going out and purposely recruiting to schools to say, hey, do you understand? And we do this in-house, that we think it's important. To go out to high schools or to go out to nonprofit agencies or anything, just to sit there and share what we do. And I think it's probably because I really push it, but I just don't think that it's not something that Belinda's going to go out and, and research, but she would be a key critical person to make that contact and connection with, because they work with the clients. And then you have other career coaches that you talk to. You know, we have career coach meetings where they can talk to each other about, hey, or what's going on with this, or what, you know, what's going on with the files here. And so, you know, making that connection, I think, is really critical. And I don't think that adult ed can sit there and assume that they're going to reach out, because, you know, we oversee a multitude of programs, hundreds of people.
It's a partnership. It really is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a
We're always here
relationship.
to provide the information.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a
And it
perfect
is really
segue.
hard finding that key person, though. It is really hard, because if you're looking for employment, you know, you can go to someone, but you might, depending on how big, you know, there's layers. But, you know, if you can get into that small agency, you know, that small Michigan Works little, you know, and talk to them, you know, you'll find that, wow, you'll open doors.
And I'll just say, as I've worked in adult ed for a long time too. Sometimes it's the people around us that are smarter than we are. And so
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you need to bring your colleagues along to that conversation, because they're the ones that are really going to be doing the legwork. They're the ones that are going to be maintaining that contact on a weekly, monthly basis on behalf of the participants.
Right.
Our role as an administrator might be to facilitate the grants and talk about the partnership really generally. But when we get down to the nitty gritty, we need the people like Belinda who work with the participants and walk with them every single day and know their story and know, okay, this particular client, this particular case needs this, you know, or this is a particular challenges. Sometimes those people, those are the ones that need to get together to communicate and talk about what's best for that participant, or what the experience that they've seen for that client or participant.
So true.
Great segue into our next question. Could you talk a little bit about the reportable performance requirements and metrics that you have for WIOA? I know that's a big conversation at the Career Center. We want to ensure that adult education refers clients for training funds that are partnering to meet those performance goals, right? Because we do have those shared metrics. So I wonder if you guys could talk about that.
So I know, Belinda, we put our data into Launchpad, which is similar to Salesforce, which keeps data specifically to the Detroit region in our center. And so we're held to metrics that we have to put in. And then we also have to put things in OSMIS, which is identical to MERS, because that's how the state reads it. We're stifled sometimes because we can't exit students, or we can't put certain data into OSMIS until we get approval from the Michigan Works Agency, from our DESE governing for our center. So we do have two systems that we are required to put in, and I don't know, Belinda, if you can talk about all the data you have to put into Launchpad and OSMIS.
So just imagine sitting down with your client and you are 2.5 hours into conversation, and you are 60-something pages of paperwork, including income information that they have printed out. And then you have to take all that information and you have to go through each one of those pages. Just making sure that everything is in order, because you do not want anything to come back that says, hey, this client is not going to be able to come into this program because they forgot to sign this piece of paper. So the process of putting that data into the system is literally about another hour. So in total, you're giving your client either in front, face-to-face, or not, not face-to-face, is a good 4 hours you're giving just one client, putting in that information and answering all of the data questions. It goes into two systems. One is Launchpad, and this Launchpad is something that our training providers can see as well to make sure that the information is in. And then it goes again into our OSMIS, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, similar to Salesforce.
It's similar to DOL, right? It's MERS. It's what exactly adult ed programs put in. And the systems don't necessarily talk to each other. So you have to actually put it into both systems, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically just taking all the information that is physically in front of you, putting it into one system, and then taking that information again and putting it into another system. It also, it looks at the data as far as the completion of when someone finishes the program. We need to make sure we put that information in by putting in certifications, and as well as job verifications and MSGs to when they finish their training.
So we have a multitude of performance metrics that we have to do. There's two. First of all, there's ones that's required by OSMIS, but there's also ones required by our contract. So DESC to the state, we are required to have so many people enter the door. So we have to service like 500 people have to come in through our door. Out of those, we have to have so many that are referred from other agencies. We're held to these numbers. We are held to how many trainings that we have to provide a year. We're held to a percentage, and everything has to be 85%. 85% survey, great customer service feedback. You know, a percentage has completed their financial, we're required to have financial education now, that they've met with a coach. We have to have so many, 300 plus people that actually have gotten jobs through us. So we have these metrics that are given to us by our grant contract, but then we're also held to what is required by WIOA. So we have, when we talk about MSGs, just like yours, we have to have credential attainment, employment, EFL gains. So we have all these things that we're held responsible to. And so that's why, Adult Ed, I know, has a lot of, requirements too, but it really doesn't compare to all the requirements that Michigan Works does, because you are required, you have a whole set of numbers, from getting people jobs to coming in for training to, going through basic intake forms. How many did, how many got a credential? How many did an EFL gain? How many outside agencies were referred to you? How many special projects such as Learn to Earn or Skills for Life did you refer people to? So we are held accountable to a lot of numbers, and the numbers are, like the state, for an EFL gain, we have to reach this percentage. DESC requires that we do 85% of attainment. So they give us a number, 321 people have to get a job. In order for you to get another contract, you have to have 85% achieve that. If you have less than that, 70%, then you're put on a corrective action plan. And then, and so you'll be, and we get monitored. We get weekly meetings and we get monitored quarterly. And we also we have someone who's at DESC assigned to us that we meet weekly. So it's, a lot. It's a lot. And unfortunately, Belinda gets it, because it'll be a last minute thing like, oh, I just got this report where you have 30 aged accounts, we gotta exit them, and so then it's a matter of, going back to some of these, and hey, we never did catch up with you to get your employment verification, which is really the number one thing, is the employment verification. It's just a pain in the butt.
And that's why it's so important to build those relationships. Again, I'm going to say it, with your clients, because, imagine you were in a program for, 6-7 months, and then it takes you another 2 months to find a job. And then your career coach is like, did you find a job? Did you find a job? Can you send me the pay stub? And it's like, wait a minute, and like I said, it's important to build those relationships, because when you finally do make those phone calls, it's not something where they're shocked, like you're asking them, well, congratulations on your job. Can you send me your pay stub? And it is something that we speak to them about during the registration process. We do let them know that after you finish your training, this is something that we're going to be following up on.
Yes, and we're required, just like you, to do quarterly follow-up reports. We have to touch them 30, 60,
90 days.
90 days, yep. And then a year out, it just depends on when they exit, because we have those quarterly exit follow-ups.
And I just echo from a statewide standpoint, that's the same thing for all reporting Michigan Works agencies, Title I service providers across the state. And now going forward, all WIOA title services are thrown into the same sausage maker, And whatever comes out is reported to the national reporting system for WIOA title services in Michigan. So we're all in it, we really all are in it together, and we all have to not be siloed working on just meeting our performance metrics, but thinking about, oh, you have that participant that I also had, you have that crossover with my program. Okay, let's swap. let's close these gaps here a little bit. We're talking about the same person. Let's get this person in, you know, short of kidnapping and holding someone hostage. I mean, that it will come to a point there where I think by necessity, right, our programs are gonna, like Belinda's being nice, you know, but we might have to have somebody call and say, here's the pay stub, you know, I got it for you, you know, on behalf of the client, obviously legal parameters and all that, but
Right.
Wouldn't it be great if the systems talk too, because that's a constant thing too. Wouldn't it be great if MERS and OSMIS could talk to each other? Wouldn't it be great if Launchpad and OSMIS, so we're not double, you know, entry, you know, putting data in twice, because then you're, you know, more susceptible to human error too, when you're putting data. And that's one thing that they look at. What's in Launchpad and what's in OSMIS? Wait a minute, you have, you know, a senior next to the name, or you might have, you know, something changed and skewed, which then it doesn't match. And surprisingly, because they're even in their OSMIS and we collect the Social Security, we don't have access to employment verification, which I find to be just crazy. Here we are, an employment agency, and we have to contact and track our, you know, customers to see if they have employment. And we actually have a contract with it's called the Work Line, and we can call them, and for a fee, mind you, they can tell us if they're
Very high
employed.
fee.
Yes, a high fee, yes, whether they're employed or not. And it doesn't give you a verification. It's not acceptable verification, but it gives you the information, because then you can contact that employer, you know. So I think it's just super crazy. It's really super annoying because it's, you know, it's time consuming. And here, you know, Belinda is working with the customer, and, you know, just the testing and the paperwork and just the calling. She really just, it takes about 24 hours for one person to really go through that whole process to be in the system. And it's a long, cumbersome time.
I often feel that the adult education and workforce development systems, particularly in our state, but I think even nationally, are like two twins that were separated at birth and then now are finding each other again. And it's like, oh, you had that experience, you had that trauma, you had that, you know, memory. And so now it's kind of like, but I grew up in a different environment, you grew up in a different environment, and now we're trying to kind of figure out how to be in the same family, right?
Yeah,
Or
how to join these two together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your focus is on education. Ours is absolutely employment, unfortunately. But tied into employment is, you know, making sure that they have that right educational, you know, requirements. And and with the city of Detroit too, and I have to admit, we have a CIET programs, which is like phenomenal. They have special programs for truck driving and for some manufacturing jobs, most of the manufacturing jobs, in fact, that if they come below a 6th grade level, they can still register, but they have to do integrated education and training. And so they put an RFP out, and we wrote one for, you know, hey, we can be a provider, and we do this anyway. We have one for our own trainings that we provide in-house. And so we've already incorporated that in so that we can build a vocabulary and the math and the reading skills. And also, we also have the ILCE grant. And so that helps too, because we do high-low forklift, we're doing, you know, Google trainings, we do HVAC and electric if they come in, you know, we have everything all set.
All right, next question as we're rolling through here. Belinda, this is maybe be specifically targeted for you. What are some of the barriers? And I know you chatted on this a little bit, but maybe give me some more examples. What are some of the barriers that cause people to drop out of programming? How have you or others troubleshooted this in the past? And are the eligibility pieces all tied to income, or could someone meet other eligibility pieces? So I guess maybe just identify the barriers first, and then maybe just, I'll change the question a little bit, but talk about how do you work with them to encourage continued eligibility or help them make sure that they're meeting continued eligibility?
Oh, that word barriers. We have a list. So I try to be as transparent with my clients as possible. We have a list of barriers that contain maybe about 40 things on it. Check off something here that that may stop you from getting this certification or stop you from going to school. And I let them know, if it's really not a barrier, don't put anything down. But if it really is a barrier, let me know and let me see how I can help you. Fortunately, I really haven't had a lot of clients that has dropped out of their training. Everyone that I have enrolled in a Learn to Earn program or a GED program or high school diploma are still there, still rolling on strong. But past participants' barriers have been lack of transportation or a parent, they're a parent who is working and can't afford childcare. I mean, the barriers really come somewhat while they're in training. So now they need tools. So now they need clothing. We have what is that? The resource that we have is called Jackets for Jobs.
Yeah.
We work with Jackets for Jobs. We have clients who need help with unemployment. So unemployment is something that we don't do here. And I'm hoping that one day we will be able to do it here for our clients, but then we have to find resources for that. They have tickets, so they need, we help, sometimes we could help pay a ticket in order to get their car running. So those kind of barriers that we just try to just kind of help with. Recently, I just met a gentleman who has a 4-year college degree and who was actually an English teacher at a school, and he lost his job. And I don't want to get very emotional because I get very passionate about my clients, but he recently lost his job and he came to the center because he really wanted to get into the tree trimming program. And he had he has a lot of barriers, and it made our conversation quite difficult in the beginning, where I actually had to bring someone else in to try to help calm him down. But at the end of our conversation, I think he wanted my phone number, because we started laughing and he was more than willing to give me, his information. That his barrier now is that he is because he's not working, he is about to be evicted from his house. So like right after this phone call, I will be calling him just to check in with him to see if there's anything that we can do for him.
We do. We just got the extra training dollars that's specific to helping that. Yeah, talk to Claudia about it. Yeah.
So they do come with barriers. Those barriers, and we really do, try to help them through it. A lot, like I said, a lot of times it's not really, really bad. It's rarely that I meet someone who has like major barriers that they will not be able to complete a program. But, unfortunately, we do have those people who really do need extra help.
And again, I think this is just another space, if I can say, where adult education providers, I think, also see many of those same barriers. And in the ways that you and others in your position across the state have taken time to cultivate relationships with local community agencies or nonprofit partners or other entities on resources, I think adult education providers has. And if there's ways that we can share those resources and contacts, right, and build that shareable list that we all want and all need, God, we'd love to have a phone number of somebody that's just willing to provide clothing, free of charge, or has a whole walk-in closet that, they want to share with somebody. I think that we have a responsibility. We should do that. And I again, that goes back to that relationship building, and because it's on behalf of our clients and our participants that we're serving. So I just think
Yeah,
that's
recently I
incredible.
just had a client who was in our sewing program. This is a fantastic program that I think, and she called me and she said, hey, I'm with my mom. I have 2 children. I knew this information as well, but she said to me, we're sleeping on the floor. Do you think you can help us with beds? And we found a place, that we referred her to that is working with her to try to help her get those, she needed 2 twin beds, one for herself and one for her children to sleep on. So we do find great resources that can help when we cannot.
Absolutely. We're coming to the end of our questions here. There's one more in the chat. It's kind of a big question. So if anyone has other questions, you can put them in there. And then I've got another one here that I've written down. But Mary Beth is saying, do you ever envision that there's a chance that mayors and OSMIS or that our reporting systems would get married? Is it talked about at the state level? Would they be able to talk to one another? Karen, you want to take a stab at that, or Belinda?
Oh, I have
That would
been
be great.
I have been working, and actually way back in the day on the data task force when MERS just started. I remember I was one of the first trainers on the MERS system, and finding out
Which is
that there
hard when
was
you're only
other.
29, Karen.
Yes, I know. How did that happen? And it was, this has been a constant communication and constant ask. And I think that the state has said, no, it's not going to happen. And we're just floored because I literally am in the OSMIS system and I look at it and I go, oh, it's just MERS. It's identical to MERS. I mean, we have different things like you have to click if they're dislocated worker or WIOA, or, the credentials and, uploading. Some things are different, but I will tell you the platform is identical to MERS. And even the tabs and everything kind of, so I just think, I don't understand it. You're both, with the state and you're both doing the same thing. But from what I hear from the state, it's like, nope. And it just crushing. So I think if we keep, pushing and pounding, that maybe it'll happen. And for a little bit, we were able to do some type of, I don't know. Nope. There's just no. I wish I could say, yes, they're talking about and having that conversation, but every time it brings it up, it's really just no. I don't get it.
Yeah, I just wish our 2 systems, Launchpad and OSMIS, spoke to each other. So and they don't. So
yeah,
I get kind of frustrated about that. I'm like, you just asked me the same questions that I just answered in this one over here. So,
Yes.
a marriage would be great.
And Belinda, you probably know this, but many adult education providers are probably saying, heck yes, is what you're saying, because many of them we don't necessarily have a separate system outside of mayors. And so it's really a lot of Excel access. Maybe you're part of a school system, and so you use what they have for some of it, your attendance reporting and some of your other things, but it is really a hodgepodge of
systems.
things.
Yeah. Well, Belinda talked about the Bagley sheet, which, is like our, and every time we meet, it's like, should we add another tab to it? Should we add another tab to it? Because it starts off with just our incoming, have they met with the financial coach? Have they met with the career coach? Are they doing basic? Did they get a job? Did they get any type of supportive services? And we keep this running balance, and it really is a checks and balance, because even though we put things in, to Launchpad, it's having that communication with other people that does our, do our intakes or our retentions. And, it's, it's really, if that sheet was to go, it would be really tragic.
It would be awful for us.
So we are putting it kind of in 3 system checks, with our Bagley sheet, and then of course Launchpad, which is required in OSMIS.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if there are, please plug them in there before we go on here. But I guess I would like to just thank you both for this. Belinda, thank you so much for walking us through this. I think it's so critical and important that in all the work that we do, that we don't lose focus about sometimes I think it's so easy to get wrapped up into the admin and the bureaucracy of all of this, right? And trying to think about what's best for us as the professionals working in it. But I'm so inspired, and one of the things why I thought it was so important to do this, and I'm so glad that Karen brought you forward to do this for, told you, I should say.
She told me.
Right. What was the passion that you have for the clients that you work with? And I think that is a shared vision that I so respect, and I know adult education and workforce development has. And I just think that that's so important. And I just think at the end of the day, maybe I'm too much of an idealist, but if we can maintain that vision, that the people that we're serving are at the heart of everything that we do in our decision making, and it's really for them, then we're on the right path and we can sleep well at the end of the day. And I just think you're a great representative of that. So thank you for taking the time to organize all of this and do this presentation.
Oh, I see. I'm getting some applause.
Can I add something?
Oh, absolutely, Karen, go ahead.
So somebody
sorry,
had asked,
Magda.
that's okay. Someone had asked the question earlier about barriers and about income being the main one. And I know the programs are different from county to county, but in Macomb, St. Clair, our young professionals program, which is specific to 16 to 24-year-olds, we have a long list of barriers that qualify for 16 to 24-year-olds. So they have to obviously be living in the county, Macomb or St. Clair, but also their parenting, if they had any trouble with the law, if they have any sort of disability, including like ADHD, depression, anxiety, anything that's written off by a doctor, they can qualify. So we do have those automatic barriers, and then if they are enrolled in the program, some of those barriers we can help with, in addition to then paying for certain training programs. So I know that's not available everywhere, but that's something that people might want to look into. And we do have someone on our team that does outreach. So she's been doing more outreach with the local schools, so including high schools and then adult education. I think one of the issues is that in our program, because of the age group, we do make that connection with the schools. I think what happens a lot of times in the adult side, if someone is like, for example, LPN, they have to have a 9th grade math and reading on FAFSA to enter the program. So I think on the adult side, they do refer them to the adult ed centers if they need ABE, but I think there's definitely like a disconnect there. I think people do get, they get bummed out about that, and then they don't make that connection, and then they're not ending up in the programs they really want to go to.
Right, and I think they use community colleges because a lot of community colleges do have programming, and that's a whole other conversation, because they do low-level developmental classes that lead into a credential, like you said, for some healthcare, versus going the adult ed route or the Michigan Works route. But I just again want to say that it's very critical finding a Michigan Works agency that you feel comfortable going in and approaching, and that they will talk to you. We have an agency from the other side of Detroit that purposefully sends their customers to us for job training and for to put them in, even though it's not really local, and their clients I'm sure come from the east side, but they love working with us. They love working with Belinda and Alicia and Ebony and the team, and it really it's making those relationships again, finding that right agency that you can work and you can feel comfortable, but don't not walk through that door and talk about what can you help me with. I have adult ed. I have 90 students right now that are graduating. What can you do for me? Because we'll gobble them up, wouldn't we, Belinda?
Yeah, we would. And I would embrace each and every one of them when they walk in the door. Just a little bit more is just that, when these barriers do occur, it's not something where it's like, oh, well, you was an offender and you won't be able to, you don't qualify because you have this, this past behind you. Then again, it's more like, well, then what can we do to try to fix this? So when it is fixed, you can come back. And, so we do have a system that to help them expunge their records. So it's not a thing where it's like, we can't help you now, you just walk out the door. We're always trying to find ways that we can help them. I personally, and I know that my colleagues as well, we do not want people walking out the door just as sad or depressed or unhopeful as they did when they walked in the door. I like when people walk out the door and they're like, okay, Belinda, well, I'll see you next week, or I'll call you. It's more one of those kind of things.
Right. And
So crush barriers around here.
and our BSR, we're in transition, getting a new one, but that was one of
What
her
is
things.
BSR, Karen?
What is
I'm sorry, BSR? Don't use the acronym.
It's BSR, yes. I'm sorry, Business Service Rep. She's in charge of employment. And she's done past presentations too, but her thing too is if you have a past record, I'm here to help you. I want that resume to look sharp. Don't sit here and bring up this and have this void, because you have skills that you need to, stress, even though you have this void of employment and you don't think you have the interview skills or you have the capacity to get that job, or participate in that training. And so really, all of us are cheerleaders and we're all there, how can we make this better? You go, you can do it. And we really, 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 really push that.
And sometimes things like the smallest thing where people come in and you ask them for a resume and then their resume is just not up to par. And then you say, you know what, let me take that resume and fix it for you. And you present them with a new resume and they're like, this is me? This is me? It makes them feel much better about going out there in the world and being like, I'm going to be really successful. All you just needed was a little tweaking. That's all we all need in life, is just a little tweaking and someone to believe in us.
Right. That's well said, Linda. Well,
it's very inspiring. Gosh, Belinda, I want to travel back in time and I want to enroll so that you can help me be my little life coach there, my little career coach. And
come on, Patrick, I'll help you.
Thank you. I wanted to circle back and just make a little comment. But Mary Beth, as you were sharing, thank you so much. I hope that you will connect with Brianne, who's on the call. Maybe you two can chat each other, but Brianne is the Macomb County, and I know Brianne, maybe you already have, but I just want to make that little connection as you were sharing about Macomb County.
We have connected.
Awesome.
Well, we actually didn't even talk about youth connections and youth programming, and that's part of the title, because there's a whole slew of other supportive and activities and for youth programming that's available for those 16 to 24-year-olds. And we really didn't touch. We really kind of just touched on the WIOA and the adult part. So that might be something. Would you
like to talk about that a little bit?
No, I think that would be a whole opening up a whole new. It's huge, but we absolutely could do something and bring in, because there's great opportunities for pre-apprentice now, and just all the GDYT, the high school. There's so many programs that are available for those kids. Absolutely. And summer programs, everything that's available for them. Yeah.
And this would be, not to take away from that, but this would just be a good caveat too, to talk about as possible other opportunities around this, and we can bring Belinda back for more, is about a year ago, MACAE signed on as a cooperating partner around a new registered apprenticeship grant opportunity for the state of Michigan called the MyStairs program. Don't ask me the acronym right now because it's not coming to me, but it's MISTAIRS. And it stands for Steps, Targeted Apprenticeship, Registered something. But anyway, a number of those, so all of those registered apprenticeships are for what they have termed as marginalized populations, women that are underrepresented in apprenticeship opportunities, individuals of color, adults without a high school equivalency or high school diploma. And so there's going to be future opportunities like this where there's going to be this crossover, so that when they are ready to enroll in training and when they're ready to go in, and Belinda is going to be able to say, wow, you came from this adult education provider, here's the exact program that you can go into one of these training opportunities and these training providers. And that it needs to be worked out still. I think we're still a little ways away from that, but that is exciting. And I think that that will only strengthen this flow through and this connection that the adult ed and workforce development system have. And so when you refer from the adult ed system over to your local career center, and they sit down with someone like Belinda or Belinda's counterparts, they'll have that working knowledge and awareness that there's opportunities specifically for this population to either be co-enrolled or just have transition and completed and be enrolled in that particular grant opportunity. So that's very exciting, and it's small. I think it's only going to serve a handful of people because it's kind of in a pilot test phase, but I think it's going to move the needle a little bit on what we're talking about here. So, well, any other final thoughts, questions? Yeah, Heather was saying, can we do a part 2 youth? I wrote it down. Absolutely. I think there's lots of conversations we can have about that.
Possibly pre-apprentice too, apprentice programs. I mean, that's big.
Well, thank
Patrick,
you.
you let me know if I can help you with anything. I'm always willing to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have been wonderful, Belinda. So I'll thank Belinda and Karen so much for their expertise. Belinda, thank you so much for taking the time and organizing and putting all this together. And I know we could have a whole week's worth of PD. It is hard to condense it in this virtual format into something that's going to be vibrant and engaging, but you absolutely did that. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. We value working with you and your partnership and your enthusiasm, and ultimately just being inspiring and being a great advocate for the same clients that we work with. So take care. We will see everyone soon. And I will once more put in the sketch form. If you were not able to complete the sketch form, you want to go in there and complete your sketch form. It's now in the chat. I'll hang on a few minutes, but otherwise we'll sign off and say take care, everybody. Bye-bye.